mindestens übertragbar Ruhe halbe Stunde. Und wo sitzt jetzt? Und die waren bei mir. Ja.
We have always getting better response from customers. Lot of footfall. From year 2015 we are participating in ProPak Asia Thailand, and this year also due to COVID there are lesser movement, but the key customer who are our customer and more people who are interested in our product are visiting frequently.
At first, Liquid Box planned to be in ProPak exhibition and have a booth, actual booth there anyway, because we know that people around the world will come to ProPak especially for the packaging business. However, the COVID situation did not support us that much to be physically being there to meet our potential client and also our partners. So ProPak has offered us a hybrid exhibition, which actually answering what we are looking for, because we still want to meet our potential clients and also our partner, but without physically being there. So that's why, with no hesitation, we actually participate in hybrid exhibition.
Hi, good afternoon and Sawadika. Welcome to the webinar episode 2 on the food solution. Today, my name is Rungpet Chitanuwat. I'm going to be the moderator for the session today. So we are going to have altogether about 1 hour and 30 minutes, which is going to cover on the smart food solutions. We have the very well-known and expert speaker together with us today. Altogether is 4 persons. I would like to have a chance to introduce all of them for you here while we are waiting for more audience to be in. The very first speech will be by Professor Dr. Pierre Pienaar. He is the president of World Packaging Organization, which is the organization that together with Informa Markets, the organizer of ProPak Asia 2021, to host this webinar. And we are going to have our honorable speaker, Dr. Johannes Bergmeer. He is the Secretary General from the WPO. He is doing on the Global Auditor Food Technology. He is based in Austria. So thank you very much, Doctor, and very good morning to him as well. And the third one will be Mr. Joe Forster. He is another one who get the WPO Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020. He is going to present on the flexible packaging. He is the Managing Director of Packaging Flexible Expert from Australia. Very good evening to you. And the next one, Mr. Alan Adams. He is the Sustainability Director from APAC region from Seal Air. So 4 of them going to give us very knowledge very well knowledge on the sustainability together with what is the smart food solutions nowadays. So I think the audience all come in already. So I would like to invite our first speaker. On behalf of World Packaging Organization or WPO, Professor Pierre Pienaar to give the welcome speech to all of us here. Please, Pierre.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rose, and it's a delight for us, the World Packaging Organization, to be involved in this series of 3 webinars, and we're on our 2nd webinar tonight. It's a privilege to be able to bring together such high-powered, high-class speakers from across the world to present up-to-date information to our audience also across the world, be that from Bangkok to Brazil or even Austria to Australia. We look forward to spending the next hour and a half with you. And please send in your questions as they come up in your mind. And after the 3 speakers have done their presentations, then we will get into the questions and really test the ability of these speakers. I've heard these speakers on many occasions across various avenues and conferences and stages across the world. And every time I find it not only delightful, not only enjoyable, but thought-provoking. And so with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Dr. Bergmeyer, as Ms. Rose clearly said, and I've known Dr. Bergmeyer for many years as we served on the board of the WPO for a number of years as respective vice presidents. But Johannes brings a wealth of knowledge as he lectures across the world, predominantly across Europe, where he is also a court expert. He also serves as a member of the Austrian Standardization Committee in Packaging, and he is the current General Secretary of the World Packaging Organization. Johannes will be talking on sustainable packaging that saves food. Thank you, Johannes.
Thank you so much, Pierre. I have to apologize first, because you do not see that beautiful background like for Pierre. This was just because my computer crashed 5 minutes before the meeting started, like it always is, in such occasions. So I had to change to my laptop, and there it's not possible to share this beautiful background. So you see my cupboard with some food contact materials there, and this is one of my experiences. So I think I start immediately to share my screen. Let me give you this and start my presentation there. Because thank you, Pierre, for your kind words. I will try to get a short overview for you on a hopefully interesting topic if we talk about food packaging. And that is a very important function of packaging because it saves food. It protects our filling goods. If we talk about sustainability and packaging at the moment, everybody is just focused on the waste issue, and the plastic in the ocean and so on. And yes, for sure, this is a big issue, and we have to overcome many problems there. And I know that many colleagues, myself and many colleagues of me, are working hard on this issue to improve this sustainability aspect of packaging materials. But on the other hand, if you look a little bit closer to the functions we have in packaging, then we will see that sustainability is not only about the waste issue in packaging. Because there's one big issue at the moment. If you talk to United Nations organizations, we as WPO are quite connected to organizations like FAO or to UNIDO here in Vienna too. And they have one big topic also on their list, and this is reducing food losses and food waste. Because it's in fact that about 1/3 of the food we are producing worldwide is lost or wasted. Yeah. By the way, what is the difference between loss and waste? Loss is more between the farmer and the factory. So it's about harvesting technologies, storage technologies of the raw materials. The food waste is more at the consumer side. So in supermarkets, in our homes, but also in restaurants and so on. Yeah. And this figure of about 1/3 food lost, yeah, is the same funny-wise all over the world. No matter if you look to countries like somewhere in Africa or in Europe or in America or in Asia, Southeast Asia, wherever, it's always about that 1/3. One time it's a little bit more on the side of the losses. In other countries, it's a little bit more on the side of the waste. But we have to face this. This is a moralic problem, yeah? Because many people are still starving on our planet. Yeah. And even if we have enough food production worldwide, we are not able to distribute these foodstuffs correctly. And so still many people live in hunger. And this cannot go on. We have to fight this as strong as we can. But we don't have to forget that it's also a big environmental issue, because producing foodstuffs, yeah, let's say some coffee, some tea, some bread, some noodles, some meat, yeah, meat products, for sure, you need some environmental impact there, yeah, because you need some energy for growing that crops. You need some water, you need fertilizers, you need landscape, yeah, and that means you're producing CO2 as an example, yeah. And these are all environmental impacts, yeah, that we cause by producing our foods. We have to accept it because we need some food to live on our planet, yeah. But at the end, it's not good that if we produce that food waste and take in account all that environmental impact, that these foodstuffs then are not consumed, but they are lost, because then it's environmental impact without any benefit out of it. So it's a big sustainability problem, and it's also for sure it's a cost problem, yeah, because all this food stuff is lost. Yeah, 1/3. Yeah, remember again, 1/3 is lost. Yeah, and it will be even a bigger problem in future because our population is still growing. So if you ask what is he talking about, what he should talk about packaging. Now, don't forget one of the main functions, yeah, of packaging, beside, let's say, the marketing aspects and the convenience aspects and the logistic distribution aspects, our packaging materials are protecting the filling goods. Yeah, we pack them, yeah, because we want to protect them from outside influences. Yeah. From humidity, maybe from some insects or other bad animals who want to eat our grains or whatever, against oxygen, yeah, or other gases which cause oxidation or something like this, or UV radiation or whatever, which is destroying maybe some foodstuffs, maybe mainly with high fatty content. And so we need this packaging protection function to protect our goods and to reduce that food waste and food loss. Yeah, and I can show you this in this graph. It's a very easy one, yeah, but it's even meanwhile in a standard, in the international standard, yeah. In 13427 shows us also this picture, as I recognized recently. Yeah, it's about packaging and the environment. Yeah. It shows on the one hand side the negative environmental impact that is coming out of using packaging. Yeah, because for sure, like for food stuff, it's true for packaging materials. If we produce them, if we use them, we need some raw materials, we need some energy. Yeah. And at the end of the life of packaging, this energy then maybe is wasted if it's going to landfill or something like this. So with every product, we have a negative environmental impact, and so we have with packaging material. Yeah, you can count it on energy consumption. CO2 production is the most common one at the moment because we are talking about this greenhouse gas effect. On the other hand, on the other scale, we have here increasing of packaging material. Yeah. And if you follow this yellow-orange line here, for sure, for a long period, it is true. If we are reducing packaging material, yeah, on a given product, let's say packed orange juice, yeah. If we're reducing the amount of packaging material, that means using thinner bottle, yeah, using a smaller cap, maybe reducing the label or whatever, then the environmental impact is also declining. Yeah, it's getting less. Yeah, because if you need less material, there's not that much environmental impact. And very wise people now would maybe say, okay, then let's play this game to a really end. And if we reduce packaging to 0, then there will be no environmental impact anymore from packaging. And this is simply not true. And this is my important message in this presentation. And I then can give you some examples how we calculate this and some examples what we can do against this. If we are reducing packaging material below a 0 line, yeah, then sometimes in one point environmental impact is increasing again. Why is it? Because at that point in that area down there, we are losing protection function of packaging. And that means if you're losing that protection function, we are producing food losses and food waste. And as mentioned already, there is already environmental impact in that food. Yeah, we needed some energy, some CO2 production to produce our foodstuffs. Yeah, and if this is lost, then this is also going to environment, this impact. And so our need as packaging technologists is to find that optimum point. For sure, it's not good to have too much packaging. There is a problem with over packaging. But to be true, if you look at our markets, normally this is regulated, yeah, because more packaging material is also more expensive. And so companies normally by nature try to reduce their amount of packaging materials. But if we go below this point, and this is what we should not forget in our sustainability discussion about packaging, that we at least need an optimum of packaging. Otherwise, we are producing food waste and we are ending up in a much bigger mess than ever we could be with producing too much packaging materials. I give you one example. We did research, and there are many research projects meanwhile on that issue, you know, how we can calculate the impact, the environmental impact of packaging. In that example, and there are much more, but I don't have that much time to present all of them. So I took the most relevant one. It's about meat. Yeah, why meat? Because in meat, maybe you do not recognize, but there's a lot of environmental impact in meat, yeah, because you need a lot of water and you need a lot of crops to feed that cattle or whatever it is, or in my region, pigs, or in other region, maybe some chicken or whatever, yeah. You need a lot of energy, and that means environmental impact to produce that piece of meat. Yeah, yeah. You need to create crop. You need maybe some stable for that cattle. This stable in my region, it's cold. Meanwhile, still, also there should be spring. We need maybe to heat that cattle, that stall for the cattle, and so on and so on. And we need the slaughtering process and all the production process. This meat, you can pack it, yeah, either with some common modified atmosphere pack, or in that case with a very special shrink film, yeah, which is organizing the oxygen income to the product. Yeah. At the end, even if you compare different packaging systems, we have two different packaging systems here, one in blue, one in green. Yeah, and even if there is maybe in the production of packaging, maybe some difference in CO2 balance, this is how we're calculating this now. The environmental impact is calculated by CO2 equivalents. Yeah, and we see already in the production of meat, yeah, and food waste, there is much more, yeah, 100 times higher impact in meat, yeah, than it ever is in packaging. Yeah, and so even if we do some modification in packaging material, even if we maybe need some more of packaging material, yeah, the big issue is about in reducing food waste. So if the blue system is causing more food waste than the green system, yeah, if we calculate everything together, yeah, then we end up with a much more environmental friendly packaging because we have a better CO2 balance. And this is the second very important story I'm telling you, because I think it's a packaging driven speciality maybe, yeah. If we're calculating the environmental impact of a packaging material, packaging system, yeah, never make the mistake to only calculate the packaging material itself, yeah, and calculate, okay, that bottle is a little bit more lightweight than this bottle, or a glass bottle has that environmental impact and a plastic bottle has that environmental impact. No, that's wrong, because you always have to calculate it in calculation with the product you fill in there in this bottle or in the meat pack in our case. So, because if you even have a better packaging system, yeah, in environmental frames, but producing more food waste with the system under the line, it's not the better system, it's the worst system. Yeah? And this is what we have to take in account. If you do a life cycle balance, whatever, do not only do it on your packaging material, also integrate your the food losses or the product losses, to talk a little bit more in general. So have to speed up a bit. That is that outcome then. I mentioned it already, but you have it also here in pictures. So for many cases, I can say for most of the products, there are only some few exemptions. Yeah. If we invest a little bit more in the packaging system in a high, so sometimes not even high sophisticated, I will give you some examples in some minutes. Yeah. If we invest a little bit of environmental impact and maybe also money for sure into packaging systems, yeah, that can reduce food loss and food waste, under the line, we will win a big environmental impact, a positive impact. Yeah, because if we reduce food waste only by a little, then the all over environmental balance is highly positive and highly green. That means highly green. Yeah, by reducing CO2 gases and so on, greenhouse gases. So, especially if we have high value products, yeah, where we take a lot of protection steps to produce them, yeah, then never forget about the protection function of your packaging. And you have to be aware, yeah, you have to be aware, my product, how sensitive is it? Is it sensitive against light? Is it sensitive against humidity? Is it sensitive against oxygen? Are there some insects or other pests who can damage it? Do we need some mechanical stress protection or whatever? Yeah. And then please focus on these issues, because if you fail in this, you will end up with a big mess and a big problem with our environment. The project then also says for sure, and I think this is what Pierre will mention in this seminar, or what we are at the moment doing. Yeah, it's about communication, it's about education, it's about training, it's about awareness, and this is what we should work on. And I think this is the reason why I'm talking here. Yeah. So if you calculate this, don't forget, for sure, we should talk about recovering and recycling. Very interesting thing, very important thing. Yeah, for sure, we should optimize our material production. It makes not sense to take too much of that packaging material. But the most important impact, if you calculate this, is the functionality of your packaging. And that means mainly the protection function of your packaging. Don't forget about this. And if you only focus on that recycling, and nowadays I have a little bit the estimation that this is the case at the moment, everybody's only talking about recycling. Yes, important, but don't forget about this protection. I hope you got it now. By the way, in that research project, if you need more info, please contact me. We did not only calculate meat, we calculate cheese, we calculate bread, we calculate some vegetables and spices and so on. In all that cases, we could show that packaging is bringing a positive impact on the eco-balance of these products. These are the details for the things. What are we doing in World Packaging? Yeah, our vision in World Packaging Organization is better quality of life through better packaging for more people. So we are an international body, Pierre mentioned already, of worldwide acting packaging institutes. Happily, we are also very, very strong in the Asian region. And one thing that we do is we are collecting, and we are doing awareness and trainings on that issue, and for sure also on that packaging that saves food thing. And we have one outstanding program. This is the World Star program, where every year we are highlighting the best packaging systems worldwide. And there we have a special category on packaging that saves food. Yeah, this is really contributing packaging materials that have been brought on the market in the last year that focus on that one aspect. And here are some results. Yeah, there is one from Australia. Yeah, so where Pierre is coming from, and I love this example. Yeah, because in modern times, and especially also in this COVID crisis time. By the way, we still just again have a lockdown for 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, so we are much more dependent on e-commerce. Yeah, on delivery service. Yeah, but for foodstuffs, there's one big problem. They have to keep cool most of the time, or hot if you deserve deliver ready-made foods, maybe dishes, yeah, and so on. Yeah, but let's focus on the cool chain. Yeah, and for sure, yes, you could use some styrofoam boxes or whatever, but we are looking for more environmental friendly solutions. And the Australians had a very good idea, because what they have in Australia is sheep. Yeah, and sheep, they're producing wool. Yeah, and I didn't know that on my own. I'm not a sheep expert, I'm a packaging expert, but you know, there are different kinds of quality of sheep wool. So first quality is going to produce some clothes or something like this. Second quality, maybe you can use it for some cushionings or whatever. The third quality, you cannot do anything with it. Normally you burn it. But the Australians, they are clever guys. So they produced, you see it here in green, insulating pads out of this wool. Yeah, so they stuffed this wool into plastic pouches and adjusted in a corrugated box. And together with this insulation material from sheep wool, yeah, which would have been wasted otherwise, we can create a really good box, environmental friendly box that keeps our refrigerated foodstuffs cool. Good solution, because it's saving food, because the shelf life of this food is then much longer. It's saving food is not only about storage, it's also about reclosing systems. Yeah, and you know, we have this on pouches meanwhile, and there are also some winners there out of Brazil. Yeah, or you have also some reclosing systems for liquid carton or Tetra Pak style, you know, that kind, to name the most important company producing such materials, that you can also reclose it easily. But it's also maybe sometimes about emptying, yeah, that you really can get all the food stuff out of a bottle, yeah, as an example. And this is also here from Brazil. Yeah, it looks like a common PET plastic bottle, but it has a very special a very special treatment on the inner side of the bottle. So the foodstuff is not contacting to the surface, so you're really able to get everything out of the bottle. Yeah. And so you're not wasting one drop of that, don't know, yogurt drink or whatever, which is in there. And this is also reducing food waste, yeah? Because imagine if just some milliliters of yogurt drink are stuck there, but we produce millions, billions of this, yeah? And if you count this together, it's a big amount of food waste we can reduce by packaging technology. This one, I cannot show you all the examples. This one is also such a good example. It looks like a normal plastic clinch film, yeah, for fresh food. What should it be? Why is it a world star? Yes, because again, you cannot see it, you know, packaging technology sometimes is invisible. Yeah, there is again a special surface treatment on the surface. Yeah, and it's blocked CO2 on the surface. So if you bring it in contact with foodstuffs, which normally bring some humidity with them, yeah, you have some water condensation on that film, and together with CO2, it's forming carbonic acid. Yeah, and this carbonic acid is able to fight microorganisms. Yeah, reducing the growth rate of that microorganisms, again leading to longer shelf life. Yeah. Nearly finished, but this is one of my most beloved examples. It's out of Africa. Yeah, again, it's not that high tech. We'll show you high tech in my next slide. Yeah, but this is not so high tech. It's plastic bags for corn harvested in Africa. And if you use these plastic bags, it's down here in the text, you can reduce food losses by 30 to 40%. Yeah, not 13, 14. 30 to 40%, yeah, because you're protecting it against light, against humidity, against insect and rodents, yeah. And this is what packaging is doing. It's saving lives, to be true, yeah. But on the other hand side, talking about smart food solutions, meanwhile, there are also many solutions on active and intelligent packaging on the market, paying in that account, yeah, and saving food, yeah. So there are special meat packages with some liquid absorption there to prolong shelf life, and we have systems with microperforation. That's that box down there, yeah. By microperforation, you can achieve that there is a special exchange of gases between these living peppers we have in there, yeah, and the surrounding air. And that means if you have higher CO2 concentration in that box, then your respiration rate of the peppers is going down, yeah, and you can achieve longer shelf life again, yeah, and reduce food waste again. And this one is also just a plastic film, yeah, but it has also very high technology functionality in there. It's absorbing ethylene gas, yeah. Ethylene gas is a ripening gas for many, many fruits and vegetables. And so if you reduce that amount of gas, and this pack is absorbing that gas, yeah, by a special technology, then you can prolong shelf life and you have fresher fruits for longer time. And that again means reducing food waste and saving our planet. And this is my last slide already. I hope I showed you and made you sensitive a little bit for that very special topic on packaging technology. We as WPO are aware that we have to do much more awareness on this issue. We are doing it at the moment. We have our World Star program for a food solution that's saving food. If you have such a solution, please contact your national packaging institution, because they are very likely member of WPO, and then we can bring it into our panel and can highlight on these solutions. And we are preparing. Would have a big show again at Interpack this and last year, but it was postponed to 2023, as you know, yeah. And we will be present at the United Nations Food Summit, which will hopefully happen in September, and also talking about that issue and working on packaging solutions that are saving food. Thank you so much. These are my contact details. So if you need anything, write me an email. I think that's the best. And hopefully to have a good discussion afterwards. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hannes. I think what you've done there is generate some interesting questions that will be coming up. So prepare yourself to be challenged. And great to see some of those World Star Awards recognizing it on the global stage, which is always very encouraging. I must say a very special welcome to all our Filipino friends, especially there from Manila, also from Melbourne. Fantastic to have you with us. Tokyo in Japan, they are with us as well. A very warm welcome to you. Not to forget our Singaporeans, great to have you with us. And then there are a whole lot of European countries that have also joined us during Johannes' presentation. So great to have you on board. And please don't hesitate to ask those questions. So the next speaker, we're going to hold all the questions until the end. So we can have all the questions together, which will be fantastic. I really enjoy question time. Our next speaker is Joe Foster. Now, Joe, I've known for many, many years. He started his own business, and he has always been in the flexible industry. So he's an expert in the flexible side, and you've been discussing flexible packaging in food. He has had businesses in Kenya, in South Africa, in Ireland, and now in Australia. Joe is a fellow of the Australian Institute of Packaging. He's also the Australian Packaging Professional of the Year in 2019. And I would say that the pinnacle of his career so far, goodness knows what's next, Joe, but at the moment, he is the reigning Lifetime Achievement Awardee for 2020. So fantastic to have you with us, and great to have such a knowledgeable person like yourself, and an expert in a very finite field that it pertains very much to food packaging. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Pierre, and certainly thank you so much to ProPak Asia for this opportunity to present to you here today. So, of course, thank you. I'll just share my screen, and hopefully we can start the slideshow. So I assume the slideshow is up on the screen. So I'll just start off. And of course, we want to talk about the importance of flexible packaging for food. So I suppose where we start really from the beginnings, why do we love flexible packaging? And I think we need to start right from the word go. Why is packaging so important? Because if you think about it today, the way we source, produce, and consume food products has changed significantly over the last 10, 15, 20, even 40 years. I suppose if you consider how some products were packed over 100 years ago, when cellophane was actually invented, like this is a good example here for potato chips or crisps, as we call it, compared to what we see today. We see shelf life of products have changed, sometimes going from what we would have expected a week, 2 weeks, or even a month. Now we're expecting some of these same type of products to last anything up to 1 year or 2 years, depending on the type of packaging, type of material. What's also quite interesting to note is that we source our products from all over the world. And food safety is very important. And therefore, we have to rely on the flexible packaging or the packaging to protect the product. It's quite important to ensure that the food is safe and it stays fresh from the moment the product is actually being packed till the time the product is actually consumed at the end of its life. But of course, we've got to take into consideration, why we really love this flexible packaging, because flexible packaging films are really utilized for their great commercial benefit, as well as their ability to suit a load of specific product requirements. And some of these product requirements, just as a starting point, could be long shelf life. It could be suitable for freezing conditions, retort, hot fill sterilization. It could be modified atmosphere packing. It could be chilled product and so forth. And please understand why we make this flexible packaging material to suit these particular products. We have to come up and invent different layers of plastic materials to actually give it those specific product requirements. If you take into consideration that most of the flexible packaging that we produce today is made up of multiple layers. A good example here, as you can see on the screen, we've got retort pouches, 2 different examples, made up of 4 different layers of plastic material or 4 different layers of film. The outside layer, in both cases, from top and bottom, is made out of polyester, which gives us a very good printing surface. We've got the aluminium foil, which gives an excellent barrier and really gives you the shelf life you're looking for. Good barrier to oxygen, moisture, and light. Very, very important. Then we've got the nylon film, which gives you your abrasion resistance and also flexibility and flex crack resistance, which is quite important, particularly when you're taking the product and cooking the product at ultra high temperatures, in this particular case, looking at 121 degrees centigrade. And then we have on the inside of the layer, which is retort cast polypropylene material. And of course, this material is there to give it the heat sealability. Now, one might ask, why would we use polypropylene on the inside? Polypropylene is there because we need the high temperature resistance compared to normal polyethylene material, which would normally melt and soften anything between 105 and 120 degrees centigrade, whereas the polypropylene material has to withstand much higher temperatures. The difference between the top sample and the bottom sample, instead of using aluminium foil, which is like your standard kitchen foil, we're using what we call as an aluminium oxide material, which is a coating of an oxide of aluminium on the surface of the polyester material, which gives you your shelf life, but also allows you to be able to see the product and also suitable for microwavability. So again, why do people hate flexible packaging? And I suppose the answer to that is because currently most of the flexible packaging material is deemed as non-recyclable. Deemed as non-recyclable because of this particular example. And of course, this example would be the worst case scenario where we have 4 layers or sometimes 5 layers of material, which therefore makes it very difficult to recycle, particularly through troublesome mechanical recycling infrastructure. The materials are difficult to separate, they melt at different temperatures, and therefore it's very difficult to put it back into a full recycling stream. Many flexible packaging material formats are made from multiple polymer layers, laminations, as we've just seen below, because we need these multiple lamination layers to fulfill the protection needs. It could be protection needs, it could be machine performance, it could be shelf life, it could be light barrier, and so forth. This is what tends to happen in a recycling facility when what we call soft plastics or flexible packaging materials are going through what we would call a mechanical recycling facility, a MRF is what we would refer it to here in Australia. Let's not get confused between soft plastics and what we deem flexible packaging. However, sadly, soft plastics here on the right-hand side, which is your traditional shopping bags and takeaway bags, are always confused with what we call flexible packaging material, and therefore flexible packaging material are treated the same as what soft plastics are. But not forgetting that flexible packaging materials are quite complex in how we put these materials together when we compare them to soft plastics. The difference between your soft plastics and flexible packaging materials, certainly in pouches or in rolls of film, is generally speaking, the soft plastics in takeaway materials is normally one layer of plastic, whereas in cases of flexible packaging structures, they can be 1, 2, 3, 4, and sometimes 5 different layers of material. And hence the reason I said this is why it sometimes makes things very difficult from a recycling point of view. Let's not forget the very important factors of flexible packaging material, why it's there, particularly for food. We need product protection, machine packing efficiency. We want zero production waste. Everybody wants zero production waste, but sometimes very difficult to obtain that. The best shelf life possibility, we want shelf appeal. Of course, you want to sell your product, so therefore shelf appeal is very important. And then we wanted added functionality. And added functionality could be resealability, it could be cook in the pack, it could be microwavability, and so forth. And then lastly is what we talk about, the sustainability hierarchy. And people sometimes say to me, Joel, why is sustainability at the bottom of the packaging hierarchy triangle? Because what I say, sometimes it cannot go on the top because we cannot lose sight of the important factors. And that is product protection, machine efficiency, zero product waste, and so forth. When we move sustainability up the packaging hierarchy ladder, we have to have a trade-off in terms of some of these very important factors, because you cannot just swap an existing flexible packaging structure to what we would deem to be a more sustainable structure without having some sort of trade-off. However, when we consider the sustainability hierarchy, we always want to start with packaging avoidance where possible. Down gauging of packaging weights is something that we should always be looking at. But again, as my colleague has just pointed out, we cannot jeopardize quality by down gauging of packaging weights, and certainly not to jeopardize shelf life and food protection. The possibility of using recycled materials, again, using recyclable materials, people sometimes confuse recycled materials versus recyclable materials. There's a very difference between both. One is obviously using materials that's been already through the process and therefore being recycled in a second life. Whereas what we're looking at using recyclable materials is these materials are more recyclable friendly, not made up of 3 or 4 different layers of plastic. Bio-based or compostable packaging. And then again, before we even consider sending our packaging to landfill, there's also the option to consider second life energy, and that could be done through pyrolysis as a good example. So if you look at flexible packaging, its efficiency and its production benefits, while a lot of people really focus on packaging the end of life, flexible packaging has an amazing benefits throughout the supply chain that can fulfill the packaging hierarchy. So what we're saying is not to just only concentrate on its end life, but look at what flexible packaging can do for you when you compare it certainly to other packaging formats. It's lightweight. As a good example, flexible packaging is soft and it's easy to manufacture, easy to transport. Therefore, a good example is some coffee packaging. When you compare a stand-up pouch, or in this particular case, a flat bottom pouch, we got 13.7 grams in weight compared to a high density tube, polyethylene based tube, which is 63 grams per 0.7, or even a tin for coffee, which is 111 grams. If you considered glass for coffee, we would be looking at 250 grams in weight when you compare that to lightweight of flexible packaging material. If you look at space efficiency, like as an example, 30 bottles of would require the same amount of storage and shipping space as 840 pouches would have with spouts. And we're talking about spout pouches. Or even one truckload of flat pouches is equal to 15 to 25 truckloads of empty rigid containers. Now, when we talk about empty rigid containers, we're talking about, it could be plastic bottles, it could be glass bottles, jars, and so forth. We also talk about high production run speeds. And of course, as we know, the layers have actually been tailored to fit production needs, particularly on form, fill, and seal. You know, when we talk about high production speeds, we're always talking about how do we tailor make the actual layers of film to ensure that we get the best performance out of the machine. Because we all know in this day and age, it's about trying to get the ultimate performance out of the packaging material. And you don't get that from, generally speaking, from one type of film. This is why we tailor make flexible packaging materials to suit the actual requirement of the product itself and the production requirements in terms of production speeds. So therefore, a coefficient of friction would be very important to ensure that we have the right slip on the material. And when we talk about the right slip on the material, we talk about, therefore, the material must pass over and slide over the machine so we don't have any issues when it comes to forming the pack. And these may be little things or things that perhaps are taken for granted, but very, very important factors when we are considering and engineering a pack that's going to suit a product that's going to run on an automatic machine. We talk about is customizable. And when we say customizable, it's easy to tailor make specs for look and feel of the pack for a specific finish or a brand. It reduces the unnecessary packaging or over specifying. And what we're finding now is that even with digital printing, it's offering us a lot more opportunities, a lot more variation that we can give in terms of customizable packaging. And of course, customizable packaging, we're talking about in flexible packaging, we're customizing the layers, customizing the finish, and not only customizing the finish, we're customizing the opportunity to have multiple runs or even short runs, as I mentioned, by utilizing digital flexible packaging. Cost efficient, low unit prices, of course, because low unit costs and low freight prices is quite important when you consider transportation of flexible packaging. I think the biggest challenge when it comes to when food products are cheap on the shelf, their packaging has to be cost efficient to make it work as well. I think this is always going to be a very big challenge. When we look at cost of packaging, and I saw there was a question put up on the screen earlier on about potential rodents and infestation on packaging material. That is very much related to cost of packaging. Sometimes when people compare flexible packaging from one source to the next, it looks exactly the same. But we have to remember that how this packaging material has been tailor-made will determine the quality of that packaging material and also determine the quality and the shelf life of the actual product itself. While it might look exactly 100% the same, we got to take into consideration how that material has been manufactured in each particular case. Fiscal costs and benefits, and then also we always have to weigh up the environmental costs and benefits. The environmental costs and benefits is very important, as we mentioned earlier on, and the fiscal costs when you start comparing the cost of lightweight packaging, and that's the benefit that you do get looking at lightweight flexible packaging in comparison to your more rigid structures that are being offered on the market. So can flexible packaging be sustainable? Of course, yes. And we're working on some better and better solutions all the time. I think it's fair to say, and I'm sure my colleague Alan will agree, that there's been a lot of changes that have taken place in the flexible packaging space over the last 3 years. We've seen many changes moving away from your multiple layer laminate materials to single layer or single polymer types. By re-engineering polyethylene films, re-engineering polypropylene films, we can get better rigidity and better barrier properties to make the recyclable friendly packaging a lot easier compared to the past. A couple of years ago, who would have thought that you could use polyethylene or even polypropylene for the packaging that we're actually considering here today as a mono-based polymer layer? So what we've had to do is we've had to look at the polymer structure. We've had to look at the way the polymer is actually physically manufactured, okay, when it comes to converting process. And then the biggest challenge, I suppose, has been having to change converting machines to allow these single-based polymer materials to perform the same way you would get made out of a multiple layer consisting of, for instance, a polyester, a polyethylene, or even the polyester, aluminium foil, and polyethylene. These materials will perform differently. But I do think that certainly over the last 3 years, we're finding that a lot more materials, a lot more options are available to go with mono-based polymer materials. This is just an example that we did for one of our clients for breakfast porridge muesli type of product. And this was actually a flat bottom pouch. And again, flat bottom pouches, for those of you in the know, generally would have been made normally with an outside layer of either polyester or polypropylene, and then polypropylene, polyester, and inner layer of sealability polyethylene. Generally speaking, these materials would have been very difficult to make as a mono-based polymer on your traditional conventional flat bottom pouch machines, because if you look at the base of the pouch, where you've got multiple layers of laminate films, right when the pouch is actually folded over in the bottom, you have issues with heat transfer and sometimes ending up with the pouch sticking together. So we've managed to overcome that, and this particular pouch here is a monopolymer based pouch made out of polypropylene base with a high barrier layer, and this has been quite a successful product. Another case study that we've had for one of our clients, also for breakfast muesli, is a fully recyclable pouch, which has actually replaced a metallized laminate structure. This metallized laminate structure was made up of 3 different layers: matte polypropylene material, 12 microns of polyester material, and then 120 microns of polyethylene material. We were able to use a matte and gloss combination, as well as making this film fully recyclable, as we've made it out of a mono-based polymer material with a very single layer of a very small layer, should I say, of high barrier. And this product in particular in Australia was actually first to market because something very special that we've done with this particular product. And that is actually by being able to offer a curbside recycling opportunity. So as I mentioned, we removed the metallized material to create 100% polyethylene high barrier version of the existing pouch. Now, looking at the photograph on the bottom here, you can see that on the right hand side of the pouch is a metallized material. On the left hand side is a polyethylene based material. This pouch, as I mentioned, is the first to the market by adding on a label on the back, which is also made of polyethylene. Simply what happens is that the consumer rolls the pouch down, and then as a result of being able to roll the pouch down, it can actually go into what we consider curbside recycling. What happens when the pouch is actually rolled down and put the label is actually is applied? Because normally what happens when we make the pouch, we apply the label on the base of the pouch. Once the pouch is actually being rolled, the label is applied, it actually now forms a 2-dimensional shape. This two-dimensional shape is like a squashed bottle. Okay, it's like a cylinder. When it goes into the mechanical recycling facility, it gets recognized as a rigid type of plastic. And basically what it allows us to do, it allows us to be able to take this product, it goes into the plastic recycling sector, and then also can turn right into a fully recycled product for a second life within the packaging stream. So we're now rolling out this product to a number of different customers, and we're finding that we're having some great success, not only in breakfast muesli, we're rolling it out in pet food. We've done the same for seafood packaging. We've done it for horticulture products, as well as a number of other areas that we're working on as well from a developmental point of view. So you're going to ask, what about compostable? And compostable packaging is inherently really a single use. It really encourages a real throwaway society. And in our opinion, is not really better for the environment over its life cycle due to deforestation. Obviously, big challenges regarding supply concerns. The energy required is obviously a lot higher. Water usage is the same. Recycling streams is a big challenge because it does tend to contaminate a lot of the recycling streams. There's big issues because of limited composting facilities worldwide. I know here in Australia, we have a challenge in terms of having to try and industrial compost, flexible packaging material or plastics material, unless you go home composting, but not everybody has a home compost, and there's challenges with that. There's a lot of poor consumer knowledge as well. And there's a big challenge as well about understanding the certification, because there is a lack of standards regarding certification here in this particular part of the world. And a big challenge also is food waste concerns. And while compostable packaging may be suitable for your dry products and so forth, there is always a challenge in terms of trying to get exactly the same shelf life out of the packaging compared to what we would rather encourage to move towards a more recycling based product. And of course, we talked about certification. Of course, this is some of a screenshot of the different certification that we can see from all over the world. And of course, there is a certification system here in Australia, and it is a process to go through. But every single packaging material that utilizes compostable packaging has to go through certification before you can claim its compostability here in Australia. Of course, what we're doing down here in Australia is we're obviously trying to encourage the correct labeling system that's in place through APCO and of course through RedCycle. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to educate the consumer, because of course, when you look at recycling labels on packaging, it's very, very confusing. Certainly confusing when you look at different parts of the world. You know, in the past, when we saw a number with a triangle on it, I think everybody thought that you could take this packaging material and you could recycle it. As some of you may know, the number really represents the type of plastic that you could actually recycle if you could physically recycle this type of plastic. So what we're doing here in Australia is we're trying to encourage the correct labeling. So therefore, the example here is we have on the left-hand side is curbside recycling for the box, the wrap, which is the plastic material, which is what we call store drop-off, and store drop-off would go through what we call RedCycle process, which is an excellent facility that's in place and encouraged through the big supermarket chain, where the consumer can actually return the soft plastic material, or should I say the soft flexible packaging material, providing the flexible packaging material has been made to a particular requirement, i.e. a certain specification. And then also, if it's not made to that specification, there's a clear instruction that this packaging material will then go into your landfill or into your bin in this particular case. So I suppose what is the next steps for flexible packaging material for food packaging is recycled content. So previously using recycled materials for consumer products packaging has been very difficult because of food safety. The biggest challenge, I suppose, with recycled material is that the big challenge is direct contact with food. But what we're finding, and a number of our clients have already converted, is the ability to now use recycled material as a secondary packaging. And I suppose this example we have here is really a good one to consider, because the inner packet, which is individually wrapped fillets of salmon in this particular case, is all wrapped using a thermoformed material, which is all virgin-based type of material. The pouches that we're making on the outside is made up of between 40 and 45% recycled plastic material. So we've actually got a number of clients who've already moved across to pouches that are made out of recycled material, because what is important is that recycled feedstock can now be sourced with a much higher quality and used in a variety of applications for flexibles, which obviously is really great, as I said, for the outer packs. So this is just a pretty good example, in our opinion, particularly for frozen foods, where we have inner packaging already protecting the product. And again, I suppose that one important factor that we take out of this is that food safety is very, very important. It's got to be always first. So therefore, we cannot jeopardize utilizing recycled materials for direct food contact. Another good example is a company called ZeroCo here in Australia, and they were first to market with a fully recycled pouch made out of 40% recycled plastics. This is a multi-layer lamination. The refill bottle that they've got, or sort of should I say, the plastic bottle is made out of ocean waste plastic. And this is an e-commerce based company whereby you order your product online, you get your box of product depending on what items you're looking for. You use the refill to fill up your plastic bottle, and then when you have 4 or 5 empty stand-up pouches or spout pouches, you return them to the manufacturer. They clean them out, sterilize them, refill them, and send them out again. The trials that we've done in this particular case has lasted up to 25 times. And what we're doing is, with packaging that hasn't been suitable for refilling, we're now finding a way to actually look at utilizing that packaging material again before, or should I say, avoiding landfill at all costs. So, of course, the pouches created had to be low in packaging weight, made from fully recycled content, or a large portion of it, and had to be fully recycled at the end of the life. So what we're saying here is that with the trials that we did and all of the tests that we did, we had to ensure that the product safety was very important. There's going to be no issues with leaking. There's going to be no issues with shelf life, and transportation was very important. As an e-commerce based company, this product is sent all over Australia, and it has to withstand the courier system that we've currently got in place. So what I say, let's respect flexible packaging for food. I do believe it has a very important role to play. And very, very happy to discuss any issues that you may have or any challenges that you might have with flexible packaging. Our company is OF Pack, based here in Melbourne, and always love to talk about challenges that you may have. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Joe. And again, I made quite a few questions coming out of that presentation of yours. So I'll certainly look forward to the question time. Before I move to the next speaker, who is Alan Adams, I just want to make mention of the newly joined viewers that the WPO has joined with with ProPak Asia to put together this 3-series webinar. This is the second one, and then we have a third one which happens in next month, and then we follow that during ProPak Asia in June with various expert panels. So Alan comes with a wealth of information, a wealth of technical expertise to this forum, where he'll be sharing a lot of that which he has come across over a very extensive period in the industry. He focuses on sustainable packaging design and certainly those that deliver a high positive impact to our industry, especially on food waste. Alan is the Sustainability Director for Sealed Air for the APAC region. And I know that he comes with a mindset of sharing his information. And it's extensive. He was one of the founder members of the Australasian Bioplastics Association. And I think that let's rather listen to Alan. So let me hand over to you and Alan. Thanks very much again for joining us today.
Thank you, Pierre, and thanks to WPO and ProPak Asia for the invitation to speak alongside these fantastic colleagues, Dr. Johannes and Joe Foster. I'm going to talk specifically about the meat industry, the future of meat packaging. And first off, I'm going to share my screen. And this is a topic that I'm really happy to talk about with great passion, because I tell you what, I really love a good steak. So it's a personal passion as well. As introduced, here's my contact email should any of you want further information from me moving forward. But I want to take you through some thoughts around what's driving packaging and illustrate with some examples from Cryovac brand packaging how the future of the meat industry packaging is evolving. So to enable a sustainable meat supply chain, we need sustainable high-performance packaging that also responds to consumer needs. And you've heard that from the previous speakers. While consumers may like your product, your choice of packaging is also very, very important. It's what consumers see, touch, and engage with. It's what they see first, and packaging really sets expectations for your product. Sustainability is increasingly embodied in this idea of the end of life of packaging. And I want to talk about how that is important, but also how so many other aspects of packaging are critical to sustainability. And at Sealed Air, we see this end of life commitment as very important. We've got to deal with the packaging we're generating and make it more circular, embrace the value of these resources. So investing in innovation to ensure that packaging is recyclable by 2025 is key, as is introducing recycled content. And we need real innovation here. So collaborating with partners to deliver step change innovation is critical. So is it really a choice between the planet or plastic? We're really here because there's been a rapid growth in plastics. They do a fantastic job and in many ways underpin the lifestyle we have. But we've got a lag in the infrastructure to clean up the used packaging coming through. And that's really the crux of the challenge we have today. So what's trending, what's changing and driving the needs of the meat cases today? Our research showed that self-service meat case is not necessarily perceived as being sustainable, but it is still being very heavily shopped. 32% of respondents in the study thought that prepackaged meat is more sustainable than full service, and 69% purchase prepackaged meat more frequently than full service. When you contrast that with the concerns about food waste, we see that what has happened in the past year in research, concerns about food waste in the household have risen in most countries. We saw a significant rise in China and in Germany. In the United States, it held firm. And the much talked about channel shift during the COVID lockdown, we see is here to stay. So 59% of consumers surveyed tried a new retail channel during lockdown, ordering food to home. 52% of consumers tried e-commerce for the very first time. This has generated a step change in demand for delivery to home. So top reasons for trials. In the lockdown, the main reasons were the desire to remain healthy and to deliver a more sanitary outcome. Post-lockdown, it's interesting to see the shift. Consumers are staying in the channel because they see it as more convenient. While the idea of prepackaged food being more sanitary remains strong, it's interesting to see the lift in convenience. A significant block of consumers has been shifted into the e-commerce space, this new channel, and they're staying there because they now see it as convenient. And alongside that, we're also seeing a shift towards longer consumption windows. In the countries surveyed that you can see here on this slide, you can see that the shift in consumption has moved from very short term to a longer consumption window. And that has impacts for what packaging has to do and deliver. Shelf life. And when it comes to looking at what is the most important feature of packaging, sustainability is on the rise. Food safety remains number one. Shelf life is important, and sustainability is on the rise. But interestingly, sustainability is not yet driving everything. You can see that it is about food safety and shelf life as the predominant reasons. So as Joe Foster talked about as well, recyclability. Recyclability is on everyone's tongue about recovering packaging. And for meat packaging, recyclability is standing out as the number one sustainability feature. Consumers are stating that they'd be more interested in sourcing products with packaging with the sustainability feature, assuming there's a similar price and shelf life. So there was some research that showed that there was more interest in purchasing a compostable variation on packaging, a more perceived sustainability. However, once the compostable packaging or sustainable packaging alternative is presented as having a shorter shelf life, then the consumer preferences have leveled right out. So despite interest in compostable packaging, consumers say they would be more interested in recycling the meat packaging than they would be in composting or disposing in the trash. Recycling is number one. Our journey towards a circular economy. We have traditionally been in a linear economy. The industry has been focused on how do we deliver the maximum amount of shelf life with the lowest amount of plastic, the lowest amount of packaging. Knowing that protecting food in the supply chain was the highest order of priority, and you heard that from both Dr. Johannes and Joe. But now there's this drive to retain the value of resources and for us to transition towards a more circular economy. But it's not going to be an easy shift. Addressing waste with essential packaging is critical. And I think Dr. Johannes showed this as well, that there is so much value contained in meat products that our first order of priority has to be to retain those resources and protect the meat. a kilo of beef can have 270 times the packaging footprint, the carbon footprint of the packaging that's used to wrap it. And you can see that just modest changes in shelf life, delivering different outcomes in food waste, can have a dramatic impact on the carbon footprint of the total package, the meat and the packaging combined. So when you look at this graph, you can see that a traditional overwrap in shrink film, which has a fairly short life, does tend to have more food waste. So generates, on average, a much higher carbon footprint than the move to a tray and lid and gas system called MAP, which can deliver perhaps a shelf life of 7 to 10 days. And yet we can go further in an example which has already been flagged in Darfresh. If we can get out to 20 plus days of shelf life, we can reduce food waste even further. And because of the dramatic resource value of the meat itself, you can see that the carbon footprint of the total pack drops as we extend shelf life. So now I want to illustrate these concepts with 3 ways that packaging can enable a sustainable meat supply chain. The first one I want to talk about is step change innovation in the packaging material itself. So can we make products more circular? Yes, we can. So Cryovac brand packaging is releasing this new shrink bag, a recycle-ready standard presentation bag that is tested to recycling standards around the world, both the American Recyclers Association and European Plastics Recycling Association, as acceptable in their processes. So we think that this type of technology will be recycle ready for anywhere that does set up to reprocess polyolefin type flexible plastics. So step change innovation can give us more circularity. And like Joe, who presented before me, Sealed Air is a big fan of labeling products for the right end-of-life outcome. And the rinse and return to store for shrink bags is a viable outcome. And it's great to get consumers to begin adopting the right behaviors and recover the packaging we can. So the technical part of this bag construction is we're moving away from a couple of the materials, PET and nylon, which are challenging to recycle when mixed with polyolefins like polyethylene. So by getting to more than 90% polyolefin content, that makes this kind of product much more friendly for recycling, now and into the future. Not only that, but we're innovating to make this even thinner. So using 14% less plastic in the first place. So compared to a traditional bag, we're reducing the amount of plastic used in the first place. So reduction in material intensity, reduction in packaging intensity, or achieving the same result with less packaging materials is always a great outcome. And a second way of producing sustainable solutions for the meat industry, extending shelf life. As Dr. Johannes pointed out, Darfresh vacuum skin packaging is a great way of extending shelf life. The move from 1 to 3 days of shelf life for fresh cut meat just wrapped to 7 to 10 days for MAP modified atmosphere, out to 20 to 30 days for fresh meat in a Darfresh vacuum skin application, dramatically improves sustainability by reducing food waste, enabling e-commerce packaging that can flow through that channel, protecting the product and giving consumers longer to consume the product in their homes, longer to make sure they have a good eating experience with all of that. And the third area is optimizing packaging. How do we reduce the amount of packaging we use? And this is not only in packaging of the finished unit, but also in the process itself. So there's step change innovation coming, which is allowing packaging that was traditionally created as a consequence of actually wrapping the meat, a matrix scrap, for example, in a Darfresh process or a thermoform process, to automated systems which can generate 100% wrapped packs, zero trim waste. So zero waste programs is another great step change and a great move forward in a sustainable meat supply chain through packaging. And the last one I want to talk to briefly is how could we think differently about the way packaging performs and deliver another great result by eliminating packaging altogether. Traditionally, meat packs had a soaker pad in them to absorb the juices that naturally come out of the meat during transport and during its shelf life. What if we redesigned the tray so that it was capable of retaining that moisture, but we didn't have to have the pad? So Hydrolock is a tray system that delivers the same shelf life, but is padless. The impact of that is dramatic. In 2020 alone, this innovation removed 2.2 million absorbent pads from the marketplace. That's 2.2 million pads that did not end up in landfill. It has the potential to remove, in Australia alone, 250 million absorbent pads per year. That is an enormous amount of waste that has to go to landfill. There is no other option for a soaker pad. Not only that, but soaker pads themselves in the production environment add complexity. Taking that complexity out can increase uptime on a packaging line by up to 3%. A small amount, but it all counts. That's sustainability in action. What about the future? Well, I'd like to show you a little graphic on a demonstration that was done in 2020 on the circularity involving Cryovac, branded packaging, Tesco's the retailer, Sabic Petrochemical Industries, and Plastic Energy in delivering a circular outcome for food contact packaging. This is very important because this is the first real demonstration of how a circular economy can deliver the outcome of packaging that is able to be used over and over again in a direct food contact application. Excuse me, my technical difficulties. So what does all this mean? We have been in a linear economy and we've done it for the right reasons, reducing resources and becoming efficient. We've moved towards thinking about a recycling economy. But with step change innovation, we can get to where we really want to go, a circular economy, where we can reuse these resources over and over again without compromising the very resource efficient and high performance plastic materials of multi-layers that deliver the shelf life we need in the meat industry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Alan. And I'm going to get straight into the questions if Joe and Johannes can join us as well. And Alan, I'm going to get straight on to you because you're in the hot seat at the moment. You were talking about the meat products and in particular Darfresh skin now pushing it out to 30 days. Where's the limit? Because the further you push it out, the more barrier you have, if that's my understanding. Where do you ultimately get, as Johannes put it, that what he called, I call it the sweet spot, he calls it the optimum pack design point. There has to be a correlation between you, Alan, and Johannes. So I'm going to start with you, Alan, and get your answer, and then I'm going to ask Johannes to jump in and comment on that.
Okay, so in an ideal world, you would deliver exactly the shelf life that any one person needed for the product they have in their hand. Unfortunately, we can't tailor every product for every single consuming situation. So we tend to pick a middle ground where we think that we've got the right amount of shelf life to support the major market that the product's being targeted at. So that's really defines the target that we head for. The interesting thing about Darfresh vacuum skin is it is also really keeping the moisture in the meat. It's also not killing off entirely enzymatic action, which is technical speak for saying your steak is going to be great eating, even if it's been in the pack for a couple of weeks. And in fact, it may even be slightly better. Ultimately, if we left, and we could do it with ultra high barrier, we could go out beyond 120 days. But the texture and the meat fibers will actually begin to degrade. So it's probably the experience in the product and the cost of the packaging to go to very long shelf life that mean it's not worth it. So we need to target what's appropriate for that consuming application.
Dr. Bergmeier.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Not that much to add, because this is also the story I'm telling, and I'm happy that I had the Darfresh in my presentation. The only thing I wanted to add is maybe I think we can create all kind of barrier we want to have. We really have to need what barrier do we need for which product, and this is a communication between food producers and packaging producers, and I think there is still improvement in there.
But Johannes, can packaging fix all this food loss? You constantly referred to a 33% or 1/3. How much can we fix with packaging?
I don't have the exact amount for this, but for sure packaging is not the one and only solution, but it's a big player in there, as we have seen in the other presentations, and the solutions are there, and I'm if you see now the change from multi-layer barrier solutions to mono-layer barrier solutions in the last few months even, then I really trust in packaging industry, but I don't have a figure for this. I think it's 1/3 of problem we can use with solve with packaging technology.
Okay, which leads me now to Joe, to hook onto your answer you've just given. He mentions that we can fix the problems with packaging. This is what Johannes mentioned. We also have a situation where can the consumers afford this expensive packaging? Question number one. Joe, do you? And question number two is, will there eventually come a point where we cannot continue to use these multi-barrier laminates, and we've got to steer towards mono materials, which you mentioned in your presentation, Joe, where there's a bit of a imbalance here. And I remember that balancing scale you had in your presentation there, Johannes, but I'm thinking that the scale is going out. Joe.
To answer the first question, can the consumer afford the cost of the more sustainability option? And I do think the answer would be yes. I think it's come a long way, and I'm sure Alan will agree with me. Compared to where it was 2 years ago, we're seeing the cost of sustainability options for recyclable sustainability options coming a lot closer to what multiple layer barrier materials are being offered in the marketplace. And I do believe it's about scalability. And just remember, when we're making a multi-layer laminate material, you got massive scalability where polyester is made like 6 or 8 meters wide machines. You've got polypropylenes made on these vast machines producing 5 or 10 tons of product per hour. These are highly commoditized materials which are sought from all over the world, and it's really about scalability and pricing. When we start offering a sustainability option, in the early days, these sustainability options are actually tailor-made to suit the actual product itself. There's no doubt about it. So therefore, there is an on-cost, but the on-cost has reduced dramatically from our point of view, certainly over the last couple of years. When we look at non-barrier options, we're actually seeing that pricing is working out price for price. When we start introducing barrier options, it depends on the actual food product and the shelf life we see. We are seeing an increase. And again, one would need to obviously look at doing the sums for each particular example. Regarding, will we ever have a situation where we can move away from multi-layer laminates? I do think eventually that is the holy grail. I think we will eventually get there. There's no doubt about it. The only challenge that we're seeing at the moment, and I do know that there is some options in the available in the market, is your high temperature sterilization pouches. So remember, with some products that we've got, they've got shelf life for 2 years or 3 years. And you may ask, why is a product need shelf life for 2 years or 3 years? That is the nature of the product itself, depending on the transportation, where the product's being packed, what part of the world, how it's going to be stored, and as I said, the nature of the product. So retort one is a bit of a challenge, although we're seeing some companies that have actually offered a sustainable option at the moment.
Alan, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, thanks. It's a very complex situation and there's no simple answer. I think that the couple of points I would like to make in this space are particularly that packaging in many ways facilitates a supply chain. And our objective should be to create a supply chain that enables the right result, the protection of the products with the least amount of resources consumed. So I really believe that we should be innovating in packaging technology to continue to do it very efficiently and deliver the right results. At the same time, we should be innovating in recycling technology that's capable of handling those high performance materials. They are not mutually exclusive, and there isn't one solution. It's a cohesive ecosystem, if you like, both in recycling technologies and in materials design. And it's very important to make sure we're thinking about that as one whole ecosystem and looking at it holistically. And just as Joe has spoken about, a 2-year shelf life for a particular product produced in part of the world might really be required. The appropriate packaging for some shelf-stable product versus a premium steak, which I spoke so glowingly about, are very different things.
Johannes, I know you want to add to that.
Yeah, not that much, because so many wise words already. The only thing I want to kick in is, but what just Ellen said, I think it's not wise to just set on one system. Yeah, and this is, there is not just one type of packaging for a product. Yeah, it's the same now, and we will have just one recycling stream. Yeah, I think we have several one, and we have to drive all of them. The interesting thing, I think it wasn't mentioned, but you had, Ellen, in your presentation at the very end. I think what will be also interesting to watch. We talked about mechanical recycling, yeah, but now also more and more this idea of chemical recycling is coming up, yeah. That you really break down polymers down to their monomers and then rebuild it again to fresh materials, yeah. And I will wonder how fast this will be on the market and how fast in a special amount, and how this will maybe also change again our our packaging structures, yeah, because then maybe it is easier then again to handle these multi-layer structures we need so much, especially in flexible packaging, as my colleagues showed. Yeah. So this chemical recycling will be a factor for me. It will be interesting how fast it will be and how fast it really gets to an relevant amount worldwide. Yeah.
So, Joe, I want to come to you on the soft plastics you referred to early on. But before then, we have a question from the audience from Vanu. When it comes to improving shelf life, will metal packaging not be better, both in terms of sustainability and increasing shelf life? This question is actually for all three of you, because all three of you can give an answer. Alan, let's start with you, and then Joe, and then Johannes.
I love this question because I think it actually gives us the opportunity to talk about what is sustainability. And I think that from a metal could be regarded as very sustainable from a recycling perspective. It's quite recyclable, systems exist. From a shelf life perspective, that metal cans are well known for what they can deliver. But if we think about the total resources consumed to enable the supply chain, metals do have a problem. They're very heavy, they're bulky to shift, and they're challenging in that way. So we are seeing a shift from heavy packaging materials towards lighter packaging materials, and the development, as Dr. Johannes spoke about, of recycling technologies that can both handle high-performance packaging materials like multi-layer plastics, but very specifically also can generate recycled content that can go back into food contact. And that's probably the space where we have struggled the most in the past.
Joe.
Yes, I think Alan has answered it perfectly well in terms of sustainability. I think, as we know, that the tin can has been around for hundreds of years and has proven to be an excellent product with regards to shelf life, and of course, excellent product from a sustainability point of view. But as Alan said, you got to consider the total package, the energy used to manufacture the tin can, the energy used to dispose, not to dispose, but to fully recycle the tin can. But let's not forget the work that's taken place with flexible packaging in retort pouches over the last 15 to 20 years. There's been significant changes in even reducing the thicknesses of the materials. When retort pouches started out, we're talking about 25, 30 years ago, the aluminium foil, as an example, was 17 microns in thickness. We're now seeing retort pouches giving you the same shelf life utilizing a 6.35 microns of aluminium foil. That's a significant change over the years. Okay, we're seeing the same with inner layers of polypropylene, cast polypropylene being reduced significantly to 70% and not jeopardizing the performance of the material. Of course, the big challenge, as we said earlier on, is being able to strip those layers out and put them into a mono-based polymer layer and ensure you've got the same quality. I still go back to the packaging hierarchy and say that, in particular, this example is that there will always be a trade-off. At this particular moment, there's no immediate shift to a sustainable option that will give you exactly like for like in terms of a flexible packaging pouch. As a flexible packaging pouch will not give you like for like with what you get out of a tin can. There was a trade-off, that is for sure. I think that's probably a good example. The tin can versus the flexible packaging, there was definitely a trade-off. And we go to sustainable route, there's definitely a trade-off in terms of the packaging hierarchy.
Johannes?
Yeah, again, not that much to add because really good colleagues here on the panel. Yeah, tin cans won't disappear. Yeah, because they have their advantages. Yeah, but on the other hand side, if you calculate the sustainability effects, the only thing I have to add, actually, Joe, you had it in your presentation. It's also about delivery space we need in warehouses and trucks. Yeah, and there
Yes.
also flexible packaging has big advantages compared to glass bottles or tin cans. On the other hand side, for sure, for protection function, tin can is just the best we have. Yeah. What I can report is some well, not figures, but I spoke to many tin can producers here in Austria because they are one of my customers. Yeah, and they said yes, they had last year in Corona crisis, they had a big peak at the beginning. Yeah, when the crisis started, because people tend to buy in stable food. Yeah, like they bought toilet paper and so on. So they didn't know how to produce. But meanwhile, it's going back again, and they also hope that there will be a permanent shift. Yeah, again back to tin cans. Yeah. But but it didn't happen as they know at the moment. It's back again to the normal amount that we had before crisis.
Joe, I told you I was going to come back to you on that soft plastics that you mentioned, and you were sort of weighing up between the soft plastics and flexibles. So what is the solution to the soft plastics? Because we know you're speaking to a lot of Southeast Asian countries at the moment, and we know in the Southeast Asian area, we have a soft plastics issue in terms of our environments. What's the solution?
Well, I think soft plastics are going to be around for quite some time. We know that. Okay. We talked about re-engineering of these soft plastics to be able to take the same family of polymer and utilize those soft plastics into flexible packaging. I think the solution is obviously being able to find a recyclable option to be able to utilize, if it was 100% soft plastics, or taking the re-engineered soft plastics and putting them into a flexible packaging structure, means that we've got a very good value chain, a very good value proposition to be able to recycle these particular soft plastics and do something with it, like a polyethylene based material or a polypropylene based material. Recyclability is, in my opinion, is definitely the way to go. I do understand a lot of work's been done with pyrolysis, and in fact, I know for a fact in Thailand, I've seen the process where they have a very good pyrolysis process where they're taking soft plastics directly from landfill and they're turning that back into oil, and that oil is refined and then turned into fuel, they're using it for the second largest bus company in Thailand. Pyrolysis is an option, but the question is always going to be is trying to work with the oil refinery companies to take this particular product and the cost of oil on the international market, whether it's going to be a competitive based product or not. Whereas we see, and as Alan keeps saying, about turning this back into a circular economy, getting it back into packaging has to be the answer. There's no doubt about it. Not secondary product, but putting it back into the circle and being able to ensure that we can reuse that plastic over and over again has to be the answer. And I think education is very important, Pierre. No doubt about it.
Always, you know it's the right thing to say, not so, Johannes. I know we're running out of time, but there are two more questions I really have to ask. Johannes, just a yes or no discussion on this question. What is the protocol if food-borne disease was found in the packaging of food products from the market? Would this product be pulled from the market?
That's a ready yes for sure. Yeah, it depends on the local regulations, the local laws. Yeah, but normally in developed countries, in normal countries, this is like this. Yeah, but also have to say this foodborne diseases packaging is most of the times is not the source for this. It's coming from the foodstuff itself.
Okay, all right. There is one more question here. It's very similar to the earlier one, but I want to ask it because one of you might have an additional information. They ask here in the question, in the future, which are more preferable between plastic cup packaging or metal can packaging for food products? I'm going to start this one with you, Johannes.
I answer it both. Yeah. Because there are situations where plastic cap is better, and there are situations where a can is better. Yeah.
Fitness
and
for
so
purpose.
We will have both. Yeah.
Yeah. Fitness for purpose.
And we need recycling streams for both. That's the thing.
Yeah. You happy with that answer, Alan?
Yes, of course. I think that we spoke a little bit before about ecosystem thinking. There is not one right type of recycling. There's a hierarchy of outcomes, and they're right for different types of packaging. One last point for me I would like to add, though, is that none of us are shy about acknowledging the size of the challenge. In countries in Southeast Asia, we have municipal waste collection challenges. We have major infrastructure challenges to deal with waste in general, including packaging waste. So this is a significant road. And while we're designing for recyclability, infrastructure is a challenge. Education is always a challenge. But I'd like to, in the interest of using education as my last comment, packaging is a great vehicle for education.
Okay, now I'm going to finish this off by only giving you 30 seconds. So at 30-second mark, I'm going to switch your mic off. You are talking predominantly to Southeast Asian countries. We certainly welcome our Europeans that are with us today as well. But because 80% of the viewers are from Southeast Asia, if you had a message in terms of smart food solutions, starting with you, Alan, then Johannes, and then Joe, in 30 seconds, what is your message to those countries for smart food solutions?
Food is the biggest generator of climate challenge, and wasted food is just an epic challenge. So smart food solutions is all about making sure that we get to eat every morsel that's produced. So be creative about how we protect food throughout, and packaging, various types of packaging are parts of the solution, not just in can it contain it and advanced shelf life, but also in design. So I think there were some great references by Dr. Johannes' presentation about how to extract food from a container by using smart technology, so we don't lose all those morsels of food that are in each pack. And I truly believe that packaging is a great vehicle for making instructions, education to consumers on how not to waste food, how to reuse it, how to cook it properly, how to treat it properly, how to store it properly. These are all things that are important about packaging design as well.
Thank you. Johannes.
Yes, absolutely. Everything what Ellen said. And if you want to realize this, you need education, awareness, knowledge. And so stay curious, yeah. Take part of such trainings, meetings here, ask your colleagues, ask companies, be open for solutions. This is what we need.
Thank you. And finally, Joe.
We'll go back to my famous packaging hierarchy. I think it's very important to analyze the requirements of the product. But adding to that, I would say sometimes we need to sort of take a step back and go back to basics and ask, what is it I really need for my packaging? Sometimes packaging is overspecified, sometimes it's underspecified. Food products have changed over the years, therefore not requiring the same degree of protection. Sometimes packaging specifications have been inherited without asking the question, why are we using this type of pack? Is there another packaging option that we should be using to get the best functionality out of the product, as what Alan has explained, to ensure you remove all the products safely and there's no issues with leftover food?
Okay, with that, I'd like to hand over to Rose. But before I do that, I just want to make special mention and say a big thank you to you, Alan, in Melbourne, to Johannes, to you in Vienna in Austria, and Joe also down in Melbourne in Australia. Great to have you guys. Thank you for your participation. And we look forward to listening to your next stage when we hear from you, I'm sure, again, somewhere. And over to you, Rose.
I can't hear you, Rose.
Rose.
Still can't hear you.
So happy that I'm not the only one having this problem.
Not yet, Rose.
Okay, if Rose doesn't come in, I think what Rose is saying that on behalf of ProPak Asia, and she being the global director for them, is saying a very big thank you to all our listeners. We certainly hope that you will join us at the next one, which is on the 12th of May. Do come along to that. We really like to have as many viewers present at that one. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers again from around the world. And we look forward to There we go, Rose. Over to you.
Okay, I actually have a few questions for Alan, but I will ask the audience to send the question to you. Actually, there is some of the audience is on the meat processing, and they want to know that their market, the culture itself, to buy from wet market. So what is the future? And question to Mr. Joe also on some of micro level products. They are looking for the pouch, but they are small scale, how they can do testing. So what I will do is I will send the email to each of you and introduce the audience to that. So finally, I would like to thank to all of you for being with us, and this is very knowledgeable. I will stay curious as you guys mentioned, and definitely thank you for the WPO for making this webinar so fruitful, and thank you for the audience, and apologize for delay a little bit. Thank you very much, and see you in next episode on the drink week during 12 to 13 May. Explore more ideas from WPO together next month. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Rose.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.